Hey everyone, if you're tired of hassling friends and family for fantasy league entry fees, try teamstake.com. Teamstake provides fantasy sports leagues with a fully customizable payment, collection, and payout distribution system at no charge. Like I said, completely free to use, free payment and payout options for all leagues, safe and secure transactions, fully customizable payment timelines and payout structures, optional late fees. They've got all kinds of options for you to use. And like I said, it is free at teamstake.com. All right, let's talk some football. Hey everyone, welcome back to the FantasyPros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere. We're on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Tags, what's up, man?
Well, Bobby, it's officially fantasy season, and I say that because it was the first night that I woke up at it was 12:30 this morning.
What?
With football on the mind. Like, I had this chart that I wanted to do for the last couple weeks, and I was just trying to find time to do it. And I woke up at 12:30, tried to go back to sleep. So I'm going on and I ended up falling asleep for like an hour and a half at like 5:30 this morning. But whatever, dude. I think it's my subconscious that actually just was preparing me for a bad day, because DeVante Parker, news just dropped before we started recording that DeVante Parker is going to be out week to week, that he cannot catch a football right now because he has a broken middle finger. And I kind of wonder if it's like a dislocated middle finger, because, you know, when you say that you can't catch with a broken finger, I've broken my fingers before, where, you know, you put a splint on it, you kind of just go about your day, and it is what it is, you know. But not being able to catch a football is worrisome, right?
Yeah, I mean, getting rockets from an NFL quarterback, I can't imagine that would feel good.
Well, fortunately, he plays with Ryan Tannehill, so it's not quite rockets, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, a rockets compared to a normal, like, backyard pass. I wouldn't play backyard football with a broken finger.
You're probably right. I mean, I played basketball with it a lot, but that was about it.
You know, I can relate to what you're saying about, like, not waking up in the middle of the night, because I don't know about you, but I'm sleeping on my Lisa mattress, so I'm not waking up in the middle of the night. But I had a dream that I designed an RNG, a random number generator, to develop like a backup running back chart. And I woke up, I'm like, that's such a good idea, and I can't remember how I did it in my dream, because, you know, there weren't like details and everything, but right. I was just watching the results trickle in as I built this. And that was what I dreamed about. I did not sleep very well because it was like I was working and using my brain and everything. But yeah, it's football season, dude, officially.
Yeah, no, it's definitely nice. I mean, it's not nice waking up, because in season that happens to me all too often, where I wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and I have spreadsheets on the mind. So I just kind of get back to work. So, you know, it's stressful at times, just because it's like something I can't stop thinking about. But at the same time, I got up and I love it. So here I am, and talking some football.
So yeah, man, yesterday when we recorded the show, I just got back from my trip, so I hadn't actually seen the Combine video yet. I mentioned, you know, you can go watch it, but I hadn't seen it myself. In fact, I didn't even know what the official scores were, Tags, because it wasn't like we used a stopwatch. I wanted to give official video timing, and so I had the producer figure out what the timing was, and it went great. Now, I don't want to ruin the video for y'all. You'll have to check it out yourself. Just go to youtube.com/fantasypros, and you'll see the video there. But I do want to tell you guys, I'm a new world record holder, right, Tags?
You are, and like, so what's the process in that? Because like, do you have to have someone out there from the Guinness Book of World Records to like actually get that in the book? Like, can you get that in the book?
Yeah, I can, and I looked up the process, because when I was doing my practice and everything, I knew I was going to break this record, and I thought, you know, we can get someone out here. It costs a lot of money, especially to get them quickly, but I didn't want to delay the video, because quickly for them is, you know, several weeks. So I'm hoping to get them in here eventually, just so it can be an official Guinness Book of World Records thing. But as for now, no, it's not.
That's still impressive, man. Like, I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, but go check it out. Like, there's something on there that Bobby does that I can't do. There's actually a lot of things that Bobby does in that video that I cannot do at my advanced age. But you did a really good job, man. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, dude. I think you would have had infinitely more bench press reps than me, though.
I hope so.
You know, I actually told the producer to put -1 instead of 0. But
nice. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I guess for those of you who don't know, I didn't even try. I took one look at the weights and I was like, I'm not going to. That is how people die. I'm not doing that. Okay, so here's what we have planned for today's show. We've got 2 pieces of news to cover, actually 3, because we need to talk about DeVante Parker now. Then we'll break down the top values from rounds 3 through 7. That's going to be the meat of the show. And if we have time, we'll get to the listener mailbag, the voicemail line, for a few questions too. There's some good ones in there. Before we jump into the news, though, here in just a second, I want to remind you about a few things we have going on for you listeners right now. First, I get this question at least a dozen times a day, so I'm just going to clear it up here. Every August, I get asked, do you guys have any promo codes you're using right now to get a premium upgrade? The answer is yes. And this one's a crazy value. Check this out. If you go to FantasyPros.com/offer, you'll get a 6-month upgrade to our highest premium tier for just $10. You didn't hear that wrong. It really is just $10. And the way it works is you just have to deposit $10 to draft.com, which is where Tags and I play all our best ball leagues. We'll be playing a ton of weekly leagues too, where you do live snake drafts to select your teams. In fact, you can draft against us and win money. Well, I mean, you can't win money if you draft against us, but you know what I mean. You can win money. And the offer is pretty much a no-brainer because you can win money with that $10. If you're already a premium user, the offer applies to you too. You just have to go to FantasyPros.com/extend. Again, this comes with all our tools and content, which is going to help you dominate your draft and fantasy football season. It applies for 6 months and to all sports. That's FantasyPros.com/offer or FantasyPros.com/extend for current premium users. Also, we've got the signed David Johnson jersey we're giving away to one of our listeners. All you have to do is go to FantasyPros.com/contest. It takes about 30 seconds to submit an entry. All right, man, let's talk about what's going on with the Eagles right now, man. Alshon Jeffrey, Carson Wentz. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with them. So Alshon Jeffrey, the news came out yesterday that he's the shoulder surgery that he got after the Super Bowl is setting him back, and there's a possibility that he starts out on the PUP list, which would put him out for the first 6 weeks of the season.
And that doesn't mean just 6 weeks. It could be longer.
It could be longer. I don't know if I'm necessarily on board. It seems like they've been hush-hush about a lot of their injuries, like Carson Wentz as well, because Carson Wentz, we talked about with Matt Waldman on the show, is that they don't know if he's going to be ready for week 1. And this keeps getting pushed back, and we know we're not going to see him in the preseason, so that's worrisome. Alshon Jeffrey, I tend to think that they're not going to put him on the PUP. I think that they're going to keep it open to if the chance that he returns, in the first 3 or 4 weeks. But now Nelson Aguilar is dealing with a lower body injury. They're not telling us what it is. So the Eagles have been really hush-hush about these injuries as of late. It's getting really bad, man.
Could this be a landing spot for Dez?
Someone asked me that actually on Twitter this morning, and I responded saying it's hard to say as of right now because I don't know if they have a good grasp on when Alshon will be ready. Obviously, they have a better grasp than we do. If Aguilar's injury is bad, I think they're going to look at someone. I think that Jeremy Maclin might be a better fit because Jeremy Maclin has played more slot over the years, just depending on how bad Aguilar's injury is. But, man, it's getting dire out there, man. But Dez Bryant has waited too long. Honestly, no matter where Dez goes now, I'm not going to be drafting him because I know his ADP is going to be in the top 30 wide receivers, and it's not going to be worth it.
He's not going to start wherever he goes, right? I mean, not right away. How could he?
It's going to be tough, but it's going to be like a Sammy Watkins situation where he's more of a decoy than anything. He'll score some touchdowns because that's what Dez does. But yeah, it's getting ugly, man. I've lowered Carson Wentz down. I got him in that like Ben Roethlisberger area right now, and
I've got him lower than that.
I don't even feel comfortable drafting him in that range, and I don't really take quarterbacks in that range anyways. So, but it's just more of like a ranking thing where he's down there. Alshon Jeffrey is outside the top 30 wide receivers for me now. Aguilar, I was going to move up, but now that he's dealing with an injury, it's like, man, what do we do with this Eagles team? Maybe Jay Ajayi is going to, receive 20 touches a game. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I've come around on Ajayi a little bit. I'm still not drafting him quite at his ADP, but I had him a bit lower. Now, I released my quarterback rankings a few days ago, and I got some serious heat, I'm guessing from Eagles fans, about Carson Wentz just being the greatest thing ever. And, if you regress his touchdown rate to Tom Brady's career average, he would have been a mid-range QB1 last year. But just, solid, great and everything. But I like Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins. I'm not excited about drafting those guys, right? So why would I draft someone coming off an ACL injury who might not just miss the preseason, but might miss the first 1, 2, 4 weeks? Who knows how long this is going to last? I'm not interested whatsoever in drafting Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. And I wasn't drafting him much before then. I just felt like his price it built into the touchdown upside that he was presenting. And yeah, so I mean, I'm with you on this one. I wasn't feeling comfortable with Wentz before, and I definitely don't know.
So let's say that we start hearing Alshon's just going to maybe miss the first week or two. Where would you take him? Right now, I've got him outside my top 35. I would take, I was going to say I would take DeVante Parker ahead of him. Not anymore, probably. I would take Cooper Kupp, Marquise Goodwin, Kelvin Benjamin ahead of him.
That's a good point. It's like, it gets into the range of, like, you start talking about guys like Michael Crabtree, Corey Davis, Jarvis Landry. Those are the guys that he'd be in the territory with if he were to miss just the first week or two. But I would probably rather take those other guys because I know that the upside with Corey Davis is higher than it is with Alshon Jeffrey at this point in his career in the offense that they play in.
You think so? I think Alshon's got some upside. Look at what he did in the playoffs, man.
Well, no, I know. He played well. He scored a lot of touchdowns last year. Touchdowns made Alshon look a lot better than he was.
That's who he is, though.
His 47% catch rate was among the worst in the NFL. So Carson Wentz, if there's some regression there, there's naturally going to be some regression that passes on to Alshon in the touchdown department. So he needs to make up for that with more yardage, and he's never really been a huge yardage guy. So I feel like the ceiling is limited, whereas someone like Corey Davis, give me the ceiling with him. I think he's got a top 12 ceiling because,
if he gets 140 targets, he could definitely be top 12. He could be top 5.
Yeah, it's a little worrisome that he's been in and out of practice, dealing with some small injuries. And I hope he's not one of these players that, throughout his career, he just deals with these little things and he misses practice because of them. Because all reports are saying that when he's out on the field, him and Mariota have a connection, like that they're connecting on so many different levels, that Adoree Jackson is getting burned by Corey Davis, that, recently signed Malcolm Butler has been burned by Corey Davis. So we know the player's good, man.
Finally healthy this year, man. We'll see what happens.
That's what I'm saying. Health is the big thing for Corey Davis.
I think Alshon, his ceiling, I think you're right, this year kind of is low. He did have 1,400 yards in his second year in the league. He's got that kind of upside. He could be a double-digit touchdown guy. But, what he did last year was with a torn rotator cuff. So I think he could be a lot better. This year he's not going to be, though, because he's recovering from that. He's not going to play all preseason. So, I think his ceiling is a top 20 guy, right? And that's not someone I am really excited about drafting.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're in sync on this one, and the fact that it's just not a player that I'm really excited to draft is all.
So let's talk DeVante Parker then, okay? Let's say he misses some time. Is Kenny Stills at his current ADP? ADP, by the way, is average draft position. So Kenny Stills is going outside the top 35, 40 wide receivers. Would you take him there? I know you like him already, but is he someone you're going to make a point to take now?
Kenny Stills is going to move up boards really soon. He's going to move up from where he's at. On top of the fact that he was somewhat undervalued, he was being taken, his ADP right now is the number 49 wide receiver off the board. And you have analysts and experts out all over the place talking about Kenny Stills and that he was the better value than Parker. I disagreed with that assessment. I was never part of that, where I believe that Kenny Stills was the better fantasy pick. But now that they're talking him up, now that Parker's hurt, Kenny Stills is probably going to move into the territory being drafted around guys like Nelson Aguilar. He's probably going to pass up Parker. You're talking about Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder. That's the range he's going to move up into, and I'm not willing to take Kenny Stills there. I think Kenny Stills is a fine player, but I don't think he's someone that I want to rely on week in and week out in fantasy football. Even with his year last year that people talk about, that he finished as a top 30 wide receiver, and that, he finished as a wide receiver 3 or better under 50% of the time. So he, more than half the time he was essentially useless to your fantasy team. So I'm not a huge Kenny Stills guy, and he obviously got the targets last year. He was over 100 targets. So I'm not huge on Stills. I don't think he's a bad pick if you get him in that wide receiver 49 range like he was going. But I think this is going to move him up into that wide receiver 40 to 42 range.
I've got him at 37, right behind Pierre Garçon and Cooper Kupp. I think he's quite similar to those guys.
Yeah. Cooper Kupp, actually, Matt Waldman talked me more into him, and I looked into it a little bit, and Cooper Kupp is definitely the red zone guy there, man. So I actually drafted him in a couple leagues since that time, a few best ball leagues.
So are you taking him ahead of Kelvin Benjamin? Are you taking Cooper Kupp ahead of Kelvin Benjamin, Robert Woods, Michael Crabtree?
I'm taking him over Kelvin Benjamin, especially with Corey Coleman now going there. There's actually a legitimate threat on the field. Zay Jones is actually back with the team, so you lowered that ceiling a little bit.
And Buffalo's not going to pass for anything this year.
Pretty much. That's obviously a concern. But Cooper Kupp is in that Sterling Shepard territory for me, where they're players who I think they can give you wide receiver 3 numbers more than half the time, but they have upside for a little bit more. I think Sterling Shepard is someone I'd rather have, just because I think the upside is legit, top 24 wide receiver, even potentially without an Odell Beckham injury.
Oh, I think Kupp is too. I think that Kupp and Sterling Shepard are very similar in that respect.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Tag, so we're going to move on over and talk about rounds 3 through 7 and values that we like in those rounds. So we're starting at about ADP 25-ish. This is where Todd Gurley, DeAndre Hopkins were drafted last year. So who are some value plays, well, I guess, compared to their ADP that you love in this range?
So I was surprised to see, because like we obviously get prepared for these shows in the morning and we look at the notes and like the ADP where it's currently at. I was surprised to see Joe Mixon still in the third round. So he, to me, is someone, if you can get him in the third round, he's like one of the best values. We kind of saw, we talked about it last show. We talked about the Bengals knowing what they have in him, how they're going to use him. I'm trying to figure out the point where I'm willing to go up to for Mixon, and I've kind of talked myself into middle of the second round that I'm willing to take him in that range. I'd probably take someone like AJ Green over him, but I think that's the cutoff. I think I would take him over someone like Mike Evans. I'd take him over Jerick McKinnon. I'd take him over Jordan Howard. So I think middle to late second is where Joe Mixon should be going. So it's really tough. And to let you guys know, the reason that we're doing rounds 3 through 7 here is because in rounds 1 and 2, there's really not value that can be had, just because it all comes down to your draft position. Because if you have the 7th pick, there's no way you can get a value on Saquon Barkley, who goes off the board at number 5 or number 6. You know what I mean? So the first and second round is almost determined who you're getting by where you're drafting. So that's why we went out to the third round.
There is one player that's a value. It's Julio Jones. Julio Jones is a great value.
For sure, and that's the thing. But it all, again, that also depends on where you fall in the draft.
Yeah, like if I'm drafting 5th, I'm not going to take Julio Jones, right?
Exactly. So you just have to fall in that right spot. So, but yeah, no, I think Joe Mixon is still a value. I don't think this is going to last.
You'd take him anywhere in the third round, of course, if he fell.
Oh, 100%. Like if he makes you to the turn at 2-3, like do not let him get past the turn.
So if you guys want to follow along with us, just go to the Fantasy Pros homepage, and on the bottom left, you'll see under NFL Research, ADP Consensus. If you click on that, it's going to take you to our average draft position consensus from CBS Sports, MFL, Fantrax, all these sites, and you'll see that ESPN can be found under PPR scoring if you do the drop down from standard scoring to PPR, or Yahoo can be found under half PPR since that's their standard setting. So right now we're going to be talking about half PPR leagues, since that's what I think the majority of people are doing nowadays. And Tags mentioned that he's really excited about Joe Mixon dropping. For me, the player that I'm super excited about is still Doug Baldwin. And I know for a second I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to draft him, but from everything I'm hearing, it seems like he's going to be ready to go week 1. Maybe he's not exactly himself week 1, but this is somebody who has virtually no competition for targets. They're going to have to pass the ball a ton. Russell Wilson looks like he could be a Hall of Famer. Doug Baldwin, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's a top 3 or 4 wide receiver this year. Right now he's going wide receiver 11, ADP 30th, behind Derrick Henry.
Yeah, he's fallen a lot further than I thought he would. With this injury to his knee that people are talking about, I'm not worried about it because, guys, if it was something really serious, Doug Baldwin would have had a procedure. He didn't have a procedure. All this entire time I've been saying I believe it's an MCL sprain, and I think they're taking it easy with him. They know that they don't need to get him on the field, and as long as he's out there for week 1, that's all I care about, because Doug Baldwin's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. He's got rapport with Russell Wilson, and on top of that, guys, we have, 175 targets that are gone just from Jimmy Graham and Paul Richardson last year. Like, I know Doug Baldwin was a little hit or miss in fantasy last year, and I think that's why some people are miffed about that. And I understand that, but when you start looking at it and say, Jimmy Graham and his 10 touchdowns are gone, his 95 targets are gone, Paul Richardson and his 6 touchdowns are gone, his 80 targets. You start looking at this and you're like, wait a minute, there's like 130, 140 target potential for Doug Baldwin. When you get someone with the talent level of Doug Baldwin with 130 or 140 targets, good things are going to happen, guys. Like, he's been a top 15 fantasy wide receiver in each of the last 3 seasons, I think it is now. I'm not worried about Doug Baldwin.
He's not great week to week. That turns some people off. I don't mind it so much. It's all going to balance out. If you've got, 6 or 7 guys who are not great week to week, chances are 2 to 4 of those guys are going to be awesome every week, and it'll work out.
Well, that's the thing, is like, that's why I mentioned the vacated targets thing and the vacated touchdowns, because I think that's going to get better this year in terms of his stability in fantasy football, because you're not going to be waiting like, oh my God, is it another Jimmy Graham week? That means Doug Baldwin's going to suck. There were actually 4 games in 2017 where Doug Baldwin saw less than 5 targets. That's not going to happen in 2018, and that's why Doug Baldwin is going to be a more stable fantasy option.
Man, I'm looking at this round here, this third round, and there are so many players here who are just going way overdrafted, like Jerick McKinnon, Derrick Henry, big time, Tyreek Hill and Adam Thielen, big time. I want no part of these guys. Now, one of them, Jerick McKinnon, his ADP has been slowly dropping as people start to realize, yeah, he's not going to be that bell cow running back. He might be, he's definitely going to get the lion's share of the carries, but he's RB16 right now in ADP. Just how far would he have to drop for him to be a value for you, Tags?
Honestly, I think he's going in the range where I think he should. And I know the thing is I should take that back. I think he should go to the middle to the end of the third round because wide receivers should be drafted higher, but they're not. And that's the thing.
I'd rather have Stephon Diggs, for instance.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs, that's like the territory that I think that I'd have that conversation. Now, the fact that it's hard to find running backs and the fact that more of them are dropping off, Darius Geis, losing him for the season, Sony Michel having the procedure on his knee, Rashad Penny all of a sudden isn't a workhorse running back and they're going to start Chris Carson. There's a lot of question marks around the running backs in that range. So it's like, I think Jerick McKinnon is like the end of that. Like, then you started getting into the Derrick Henrys, the Jay Ajayis, where it's like the guys in a timeshare. Knowing Jerick McKinnon is, targets are worth more than carries. So the fact that he's going to be used in a similar way to Devonta Freeman was in Atlanta, there's reason to like him. I think he's a third round pick. So I don't think he's a value, but I also don't think that you're getting a tremendous, or you're wasting a pick or anything like that. I think he's going kind of where he should, to be honest with you. I think he should be like a middle to late third round pick.
Yeah, well, right now he's going at the start of the third, end of the second round, man. His consensus ADP is 24.5 PPR. And, like I said, I'd rather have Stephon Diggs, Zach Ertz, so I'm not getting any shares of McKinnon. If he drops further, like into the late third round, sure, I'll have some shares, but I don't think it's a very good value. Is there anyone else in the third round that is a good value, or are they all just being drafted where you think they should be? Besides the reaches like Tyreek Hill and Adam Thielen, who we both don't like.
Well, what's weird is I'm starting to believe that LeSean McCoy might turn into somewhat of value if he gets in the third round. And so I want to be clear about that. I want to be clear about this, though. I don't think any legal things are going to come about. Like, it seems like the charges that were pressed against him are very muddy. It has nothing to do with him. It's somebody else. So it's like a conspiracy that they're trying to press charges against, that he hired someone to do this. It's going to take
which could be true. Conspiracy doesn't mean it's definitely not true. It's just like, we'll see what happens.
I'm just saying it takes time. It would take time is what I'm saying to go through the legal process, and the commissioner hasn't put him on the exempt list. So as far as I know, LeSean McCoy is going to play all 16 games this year.
I think so too.
I don't like the team. I don't like the offense. I don't like the offensive line, but they don't have anything. And you cannot, when you get into the third round, you can't find running backs who get 300 touches. It doesn't happen. So the fact that LeSean McCoy, now his ADP varies. There's one as low as 27, one as high as 21. Different sites have him going in the fourth round. It just depends on where you're drafting. So understand where you're drafting and where he's at on the draft board, because if he falls into late third, I think LeSean McCoy is a value, because you can't find those RB touches. And even if he lacks the upside that he used to have, and believe me, he's going to lack that upside, he's going to be a safe low-end RB1 most weeks.
I don't think so. I disagree.
He's boring, but I'm telling you, you cannot find 18 touches, in the fourth and fifth rounds. You can't do it.
So you've got your boom, bust, and everything in between series, which is the best series on our site. I really believe that. I love reading it. I've learned a ton from reading it. Go pull up LeSean McCoy. Tell us what it says about his consistency. He's not safe. He was not safe last year, man.
Well, I mean, he lacked the upside last year. It went down. He took a dip for sure. He was only an RB1 44% of the time, but he was an RB2 or better 75% of the time. So he was still delivering decent numbers. That's the thing, is the offense, they've lost 3 starting offensive linemen. Obviously, the quarterback downgrade from Tyrod Taylor to Nathan Peterman, or whoever it's going to be.
Is Nathan Peterman going to start? I think he is.
I don't know, man. I think McCarron's going to start. I think they have to, with, how they went after him in free agency. But I don't know, man. It's not a great situation. I'm not saying it is, but I think he's turning into, if you can get him at the end of the third, I think he's somewhat of a value, especially if he plays all 16 games.
Before the legal stuff, I had LeSean McCoy as my RB17. Right now, I've got him as my RB16 because of the Darius Geis thing, who I had ahead of him. So that's because I'm expecting McCoy to play all 16 games. Even if he gets suspended, something comes down, it's going to happen next year. At least that's the way it's sounding from the lawyers that I've talked to about it. But you're right, it gets really ugly after that. You've got to go Kenyon Drake, Alex Collins, Jay Ajayi. Those guys scare me to death. Royce Freeman I'm fine with. Actually, Royce Freeman, I'm going to move ahead of him right now. So put McCoy back at RB17. But It's a scary situation if you don't have 2 running backs by that range.
For sure, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't think he's a sexy pick at all. Believe me, guys, he's not going to win you your fantasy league, but it's just hard to find those touches at the running back position, and I would rather snag him than someone like Kenyon Drake, who is listed as co-starters with Frank Gore for whatever reason. Adam Gase and Dirk Cutter, I think, are competing for who gets fired first.
I don't know, man. I don't think they're going to fire Hugh Jackson, but if Hugh Jackson takes all this talent and he wins like 3 games, which I think is very realistic, he's got to get fired.
He will. The worst case scenario is they go 7-9 and they consider it an improvement and they keep him on board. Hugh Jackson, with the talent that's on that team, that should be a winning football team. Somebody,
though, is going to get a great value because everyone's going to be like, I don't want to touch Hugh Jackson now that he's fired. And someone's going to scoop him up and say, hey, Hugh, come be my offensive coordinator and be awesome again. And he will be.
Maybe come back to Cincinnati.
Yeah. Yeah, so for real. All right, before we move on into round 4 here, I want to tell you about another one of the sponsors of today's show, Sleeper, and I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes here, okay? When I found out we were doing our listener league through Sleeper app, I hadn't seen their site. I was like, oh man, another one of these weird sites, come on. Then I looked at the site, okay? Immediately changed my mind. In fact, I sent out an email to my favorite home league and practically begged them to switch over. I'm going to tell you the exact same thing I said to them. Just take 5 seconds, look at it for yourself, go to sleeper.app. If you don't like it, fine, I'll leave you alone. But I really don't need to say anything else because you're going to absolutely love it. Just like I did, this site is beautiful. It's simple to navigate. It's got all kinds of customizable features like 3-team trading, customizable playoffs, and so forth. Again, all I'm asking you to do is take 5 seconds, go to sleeper.app, and you'll see for yourself. You're going to absolutely love it. Tags, can you tell them how to get an entry in for the Listener League?
Absolutely. You're going to go to fantasypros.com/Listener League. That's all you got to do. It's pretty simple. And by the way, and if you guys don't get in there, you can fill out that entry there. But there's another thing we have going on, and they've upped it, Bobby. So I learned about that this morning, and I talked about it on the show yesterday, but we have more details now. So we have a new page. It's fantasypros.com/mock draft. You are going to go there to enter for a chance to do a mock draft against me next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. So what they did is they're making it so that anybody that beats me, anybody in that draft who beats me, they're going to win a free 6-month Fantasy Pro subscription. So
I'm going to enter, dude.
Everybody
knows.
That's
a gimme for me. Yeah, in fact, they told me that the reason they didn't put me in this draft is because they were like, well, we want to give away some upgrades. Like, if you're in the draft, nobody will beat you. That'll be sad for them.
Oh, God, don't start with me. Anyways, guys, go to fantasypros.com/mock draft. See if you guys can beat me the way that Bobby does seemingly like every other mock draft now, because I won the last one. I'm gonna stick to that.
You know, I'm still not going to let you have that. I think I conceded like a couple episodes just for show, just so everyone was like, oh, it's finally over. It's not over. You cheated. You cheated, man. You talked so long that I got auto-drafted Big Ben in the 8th round. Otherwise, I would have had a 100 again.
We'll see. I mean, we're going to see how many people could beat me. Our listeners are smart people, so it should be a good time.
All right, 4th round, man. I already mentioned my favorite value here. It is Zach Ertz. I can't believe this guy's not going in the 3rd round. I take him in the late 2nd round in some instances, man. He is awesome.
I'm coming around on him as like a 3rd round pick, but man, I can't. I don't put him in the tier with Gronk and Kelsey.
Why not? He's got more receptions than Gronk each of the last 3 seasons. Gronk is out for the season like every other year. Ertz is durable.
Fun fact. Zach Ertz, even though he had such a career year last year, you're talking about the receptions and everything, he saw more targets per game than Gronk. Ertz had 1 game with more than 20 PPR points. Gronk did that 43% of his games last year.
Oh man, what?
Gronk just offers upside that you can't find anywhere else. That's why he's slightly above Kelsey for me, because the upside that he presents legitimately over 20 PPR points per game, 43% of the time last year. Like, what?
That's stupid. What? I mean, I know I already said that, but like, that was a real reaction for the 2nd time. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and that's why he's the number 1 tight end. Like, granted, injuries are a thing. Like, if Gronk gets hurt, I can't control that. But if Gronk plays, he's absolutely the number 1 tight end.
I don't know, man. I don't want to waste my late 2nd round pick on someone who could kill my season. I mean, I guess Ertz could get hurt too, but it's like half the time with Gronk.
Well, Ertz has missed, I think, 4 games the last 2 years, so he's missed some time too. I mean, fortunately, you have a backup, Dallas Goedert. It appears that he's just going to like walk into the Trey Burton role and produce if Zach Ertz misses any time.
Maybe be better, man. Goddard is going to be So good. I loved all these tight ends coming out the last few years. O.J. Howard and, Hayden Hurst and everything like that. Goddard is my guy. Way more than Gesicki. I really wanted the Jags to take Dallas Goedert.
I like Gesicki better than Goddard. I don't think he's a bad prospect by any means, but he fell into the right system where if he gets a shot, he's going to produce for sure. And we saw that in the first preseason game. He looked good. I just don't like the way my team looks when I take a tight end early because it really puts you behind the 8 ball at running back most of the time. It's either you go 2 running backs and you take a tight end and then you're like screwed at wide receiver, or you go wide receiver, running back, tight end, and then you're looking at, your RB2 is going to be someone like, Ronald Jones or something, you know what I mean? Like where it's just, you don't
make my RB2 Mark Ingram. I'll figure it out the first couple weeks.
Yeah, Mark Ingram is someone that I actually wanted to mention that I think that he's one of the better values in the 3 to 7 round range, actually, because as I mentioned in the whole series that I've been doing and the whole boom bust and everything in between, it basically says that Mark Ingram, in terms of RB2 performances that he's going to give you, you're essentially going to get paid off with him playing 12 games. Like he's going to give you more RB2 performances than everyone being taken in that range. So yes.
Wow. And
that's
stat.
So that's the thing, but that doesn't even account for the running back that you're going to stick in his slot, for those first 4 weeks. Let's say that you grab maybe Jordan Wilkins, maybe you get TJ Yeldon, and you get someone to just fill that might give you an RB2 performance here or there. And suddenly you have Mark Ingram back and your team just looks stacked.
Yep, it sure does. And Mark Ingram right now, his ADP is 48.5. And so that's, late 4th round, early 5th round. Is there anybody else in the 4th round that you just love, like I love Zach Ertz?
I think that Demaryius Thomas is someone that I really like in the 4th round. He's going at the end of the 4th round, too.
He's a good one, but, what are you going to do, take him over Larry Fitzgerald?
I actually would, yeah.
No, you would not. Are you serious?
No, I would. I feel like Fitzgerald is going to be a little bit overvalued. So this thing that I was working on last night, or this morning, I should say, when I woke up, 12:30 this morning, Larry Fitzgerald, he saw 9 or more targets 11 times in 2017.
Oh, it's going to be more than 11 this year. Who's going to take targets from him?
Hold on a second. David Johnson was gone last year. Okay. The only wide receivers who had more games with 9+ targets were Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. So don't be surprised that you see Larry Fitzgerald finish with as many fantasy points as he did. They drafted Christian Kirk. They're getting back their 3rd round draft pick, Chad Williams. They snagged Bryce Butler in free agency. JJ Nelson's there as a deep threat, whatever. Ricky Seals-Jones has been hyped up, saying that he could be a player. He's going to get more targets than...
They're going from Drew Stanton to a real quarterback.
I understand what you're saying, but are you saying that there's going to be more volume to go around? Because I don't think there is. I think there's going to be less volume, and I think it's going to be distributed more evenly.
Of the volume that's returning to the team, Larry Fitzgerald had over half of it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. David Johnson was gone.
I'm saying a ton of guys left. He's got 456 targets over the last 3 seasons. He's got 107 receptions or more in all 3 of those seasons, man.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying Fitzgerald's gonna be a bust. I think Fitzgerald's fine where he's going. I just think that Demaryius Thomas is the better pick.
Okay, man. Okay, that's your loss. The people who are listening to me, don't draft DT over Larry Fitzgerald. Please.
Demaryius Thomas.
I like Demaryius Thomas too, but man, you're talking crazy right now.
I love it, man. I love it. And the thing is, Demaryius Thomas is someone I haven't drafted the last few years because he's just been like a wide receiver too that he just doesn't have much upside anymore. He's not scoring touchdowns, and he looked like he was trending down. They're breathing some life into the offense. They're starting to have a run game, and they did upgrade a quarterback with Case Keenum. So I just feel like he's going to be a stable wide receiver too. I don't think he's going to win you a fantasy league, but you don't get players who are as safe as he is at the end of the 4th round typically. And that's what I'm saying is I think he's a value there. This isn't the best upside you could find in the 4th round. This is the best value in these rounds. And I think Demaryius Thomas at the end of the 4th is tremendous value.
Can I just have all the 4th round picks? This is why we need to play in an auction league, so I can get all the 4th round picks. Give me Zach Ertz. Give me Fitzgerald. Give me Demaryius Thomas. I'll take Brandon Cooks. I'll take Allen Robinson. Mark Ingram. I want all of them, dude. These are all great values.
So wait, why is Brandon Cooks and Juju Smith-Schuster going over Demaryius Thomas?
That's stupid. I mean, don't ask me. I don't know. I didn't know Brandon Cooks was the wide receiver 17. That's about where I've been taking him as wide receiver 16, 17. Because ECR, that's expert consensus rankings, the industry experts have him a lot lower than the general public. Now, I tend to agree with the general public on this one, but I thought he was going so much later because all the expert drafts I've been in, he's been taken around the 5th, 6th round.
Yeah, no, he's usually right around that 22nd, 23rd wide receiver that I've seen. But according to ADP right now, Demaryius Thomas is the wide receiver 20. Cooks is 17. Juju Smith-Schuster is the wide receiver 19. Rashad Penny's going over Demaryius Thomas. Guys, this should not happen, guys.
Yeah. I mean, on Fantrax, Brandon Cooks is at 39. On other sites, he's being drafted in the 5th round. So, that's why you want to pull up the ADP consensus to see where the differences are so you can prep for your league, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the thing is if someone takes Rashad Penny in front of you and you can get Demaryius Thomas, just be laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, I agree. All right, man. I know you want to talk about Allen Robinson, so just have at it.
I'm not going to, actually, because I think that he's going right where I believe that he is a value to a certain extent, but I also think there's some risk involved with him. So I think that taking him in the 4th round, which is where he's going one pick after Demaryius Thomas. Thomas is safer. Robinson might have more upside in terms of touchdown upside in the offense that he plays in, So it's really pick your poison with those two. That's why I went with Demaryius Thomas, because I feel like he's a better value, and I'm putting up the quotes value.
If I said over under on Allen Robinson finishing wide receiver 21, what would you say?
Oh, I'd say he's going to finish better than that, I would say.
I'd say under, and it's not even close. How's that a question? That's his ADP, wide receiver 21.
Right. Again, Juju Smith-Schuster, Brandon Cooks, those guys shouldn't be drafted in front of Allen Robinson. If you want to make the case for Larry Fitzgerald, Demaryius Thomas, Josh Gordon is still there. I wouldn't draft Josh Gordon over him. But if you want to make the case for some of those guys, that's fine. But again, I'm not drafting Allen Robinson over guys like Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Demaryius Thomas, it just depends. It depends on how I feel about my team. If I want some safety, or if I'm looking for someone who could potentially finish as a top 5 wide receiver. I just think that Anthony Miller is going to cap Allen Robinson's upside more than I initially expected, is what I'm saying, I guess.
I would take Allen Robinson over Tyreek Hill or Adam Thielen. Now, that's not going to be an option for me because someone else is going to take Tyreek Hill in the 2nd round or something stupid. But I like Allen Robinson at wide receiver 21 for sure.
I think Allen Robinson and Tyreek Hill, I think they belong in a similar territory. I would definitely take Robinson over Thielen. But Tyreek Hill, again, he's someone you're living on the edge. It's you go from value of Demaryius Thomas, safety. You go to Allen Robinson, who's got he's got some risk coming back from an injury, a new offense, new quarterback. But then you get to Tyreek Hill and you're everything is just, okay. If you want to take all the risk, you go ahead and do that. But he's not going at the end of the 4th round like these guys are.
Yeah, I've got Robinson at a wide receiver 18. Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 19. So it is really close for me. Tags, let's move on to the 5th round. And for me, I love Golden Tate too. He's basically the same player as Demaryius Thomas, just going around later. Not quite as good as Demaryius Thomas, but he's got Matthew Stafford. Both these guys are super durable. He's going to have another very solid season. He's not going to score the touchdowns. But for me, this round is all about Royce Freeman. And in fact, I should have said him in the last round, because even though I love all those values that I mentioned, yeah, I'm taking Zach Ertz in the late 3rd round, so he doesn't really count. I wouldn't take Royce Freeman over him. But all the other guys I mentioned, Larry Fitzgerald, Demaryius Thomas, Allen Robinson, Mark Ingram, give me Royce Freeman over all of them. I think he belongs in this tier of you have to get 2 running backs before this.
Wow, you're getting high on Freeman, and honestly, it's starting to reflect though in the ADP as well. So Royce Freeman is now going ahead of Ronald Jones, Sony Michel, Deion Lewis, that tier of running backs. So he's moving his way up the draft board for sure. The next one that he would pass is Mark Ingram. I'm not ready to do that, because I think there's still some question marks here. They haven't really committed to him. They do have 4 running backs in their roster that they seem to like. I like Royce Freeman from a talent standpoint. I would love it if we saw DeVante Booker cut, because it would eliminate, the seniority that he'd have, in the offense. But I like Freeman. I think it's getting to the point now where he's being valued properly. I own him in so much best ball because he was undervalued for so long. I was getting him as the 40th running back off the board for a long time. I'm not kidding when I say that I own Royce Freeman in probably at least 40% of my best ball leagues.
Wow. I'm jealous, man. I want to buy some of those best ball teams from you. You can have all of mine where I drafted Darius Guice.
Oh yeah, we don't want that to happen. But no, I think someone in this round that actually is a better value than Freeman. They're both going in the 5th round. It's Lamar Miller. I know that.
Make the bet right now. Royce Freeman face Lamar Miller. Make it. Actually, we'll talk about. We need to figure out what the bet is going to detail around, but we will figure this out. I'm not letting you get away with that one.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna make sure, because if Devontae Booker's cut, I'm gonna like Royce Freeman a lot more. So, but what I'm saying, Lamar Miller is a value in this round as well. Lamar Miller is someone that I believe should be drafted in the top 20 running backs. I would take him over I think any of the rookie running backs at this point. It's gotten to the point where all these guys are just have some question marks around them. Oh, not Saquon Barkley, obviously.
He doesn't really count, man.
No, but he doesn't count. But Lamar Miller, he showed up to training camp. They said he lost weight. They said that he looked more like the running back that came to the team from Miami. And if that's what you're getting, Lamar Miller is going to be a lot better. He was also a lot better in his games with Deshaun Watson last year. It's an underrated portion of fantasy that people forget how much a mobile quarterback can impact a running back. And the defense almost has to put a spy on the quarterback to account for him running the football, which essentially takes a defender out of the box for the running back. So Lamar Miller, to see him produce more in games with Deshaun Watson, it's not surprising. And to know that he showed up looking really good and that in the first preseason game, he looked fantastic. And that Deontay Foreman is going to start the season on the PUP list. This all adds up to me thinking that he's going to be a tremendous value where he's being selected.
Now, this isn't exactly a value here in the 5th round. Russell Wilson is going in the 5th round, but what I want to say is if you're in a league with a bunch of smart people who are taking quarterbacks late, sometimes Russell Wilson falls further than he should. He can be a value in your leagues.
I would agree with you. I think that Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are the only quarterbacks that I would even debate in the top 6 rounds.
I think I'd take Cam Newton in the 7th. I wouldn't take anyone else until the 9th or 10th, besides Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, usually for me, it's either Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or bust, where it's like I'm just going to wait at the position if I don't get one of those guys.
You don't like Cam, man?
No, I don't, actually. And like the thing is, the offensive line is getting worse and worse. They keep talking up Christian McCaffrey. So, I mean, if Christian McCaffrey is going to live up to all this hype, he's going to get some goal line carries, right? Like, because if you love him so much, the interior of the offensive line took a big hit with Andrew Norwell losing him in free agency.
Huge hit.
They lost another left guard. I can't remember his name right now. They lost him during training camp. So the left tackle position with Khalil is awful. There's just so many problems here. And I believe that Newton's going to give you value, and he's probably going to finish the year as a top 5 quarterback. But the issue is that you're paying top 3 price for a guy that's going to finish outside QB1 territory half the time, if not more.
I don't know, man. Well, here's what I'm looking at, okay? Here are his fantasy finishes in the seasons where he was healthy. Quarterback 3, quarterback 4, quarterback 3, quarterback 1, quarterback 2. That's who Cam Newton is. If he's healthy, we get a top 3, top 4 quarterback.
I think it's unfair to say he wasn't healthy the 1 year. I know there was the 1 year where they dialed back his rushing, and that definitely held him back, but I don't think Cam Newton. So looking at his career,
Dude, he broke his back in a car accident, man. What are you talking about?
No, he didn't break his back. No, he didn't. Hold on a second.
He didn't even have a fracture in his back?
No, he didn't have a fracture. No, that the back fracture was Tony Romo. But anyways, I want to go back to what you were talking about, the boom bust and everything in between series, because I think this is important to highlight with Cam Newton. You just talked about his finishes as a quarterback. All right. He has finished as a top 12 quarterback more than half the time in just 2 of his NFL seasons. One was back in his rookie year. The other one was when he had that crazy passing season where they went to the Super Bowl in 2015. Outside of that, he has, in the other 5 seasons he's played, he has never finished as a top 12 quarterback more than 50% of the time. That's going to kill you. That's going to kill you. And again, if you take away that 2015 season, that looks like an outlier in his career. He busts, which means less than 14 fantasy points. I'm going to go through the bust percentages. 38% of the time in 2017, 47% in 2016, 36% in 2014. So like you can see, he's not always going to be good. He presents some tremendous upside, which is why he's like my QB2 in best ball. Like he presents upside just as much as Aaron Rodgers does. But he is not nearly enough consistent for redraft leagues. Even though he finishes there, it's because of those big performances that he gives. Again, he's just not consistent enough where I'd consider him. Honestly, someone could tell me that they'd take Drew Brees over him, and I would say, okay, I mean, I could understand it.
Yeah, I could see that too, because Drew Brees has been so safe every year, except for last year when his touchdown rate, for whatever reason, just dipped so low. And when you look at Cam Newton's numbers, his touchdown rate is always 4.1, 4.5, 3.7, 4.0, and then that 1 year it was 7.1. Now, obviously, that was not sustainable, and so he dropped back down to who he is. Also, remember, Cam Newton had some cartilage damage to his knee. Now, apparently, he's going to be ready to go. He's back to normal. I'm not so sure that the rushing is going to be there as much as it always has been.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of pieces on this team trying to figure out where all the production goes. So, again, I don't think Cam Newton's going to be a bust. I think he's going to finish the year as a top 5 quarterback. It's just you should not pay for that.
Okay. By the way, I looked it up. He did have 2 fractures in his back.
I'm not buying it.
Okay. I don't know what to tell you, dude.
I did suffer back fractures, and so the only thing that you could do, like legitimately for the fractures, because I ended up having a worse back injury later on, but for the fractures, I had to be on bed rest for a month. Like legitimately, I had to lay my butt on the couch and recover from 2 back fractures. I had 2, and it was my lower back. And I'm just saying, you can't play football if you have an injury like that, you're going to be out for a month. Like it's just doctor's orders.
Yeah, it must have been like a minor thing. I have no idea. All I'm telling you is I remember reading the story and I looked it up and it was there. So maybe somebody lied. I don't know. You know.
Madness, I tell you.
Okay, so we just finished up the 5th round. I do want to talk about Sony Michel. Right now, his current ADP is in the end of that 5th round. I think over the past week, past 2 weeks, he's been being drafted in the 6th, 7th round. I think he's still a value. RB26, RB30, wherever he's going. I've got him in my top 25. No question.
Yep, I have taken him in a few drafts actually, and I have some of my followers in some of my drafts. And I took Sony Michel, I think, in the 7th round the other day, and someone said, "So you're still a Michel believer, huh?" And I said, "Yeah. I mean, you get to this range, it's like, are you drafting sure things? Do you think Deion Lewis is a sure thing? No, give me the running back who I know has top 12 upside. Like legitimately, Sony Michel has top 12 upside. Am I worried about him missing some of camp? Yeah, I'm a little worried about it, but I'm also, the thing is, Rex Burkhead has been missing camp too. Like Rex Burkhead has been out of practice. He didn't play in the preseason game. So it's not like, he's getting all these reps with the first team. It's more Jeremy Hill than anything. But again, Sony Michel, there's a reason the Patriots drafted the guy. They're going to use him. So again,
they're the best goal line team. They have more goal line opportunities for running backs every single year, and it's not even close than any other team.
Yep, and he's an amazing 3-down back. And there's a reason that Jeremy Hill had to share the backfield with Gio Bernard, because he's not a great pass blocker. So, I mean, the number one goal here for the Patriots is to protect Tom Brady, right? Even talking about, Julian Edelman being out for the first 4 weeks, Eric Decker, they're saying that he's having a lot of issues in practice right now. He's struggling with drops. He's struggling to pick up the offense as quickly as they want him to. It's kind of like what we were hearing about Jordan Matthews for a little bit. So we don't even know if Eric Decker is going to stick to the team. So they might need to use Rex Burkhead as kind of like a slot receiver over the first 4 weeks, which would honestly bring Michel right back in alongside of Jeremy Hill. And again, if the goal is to protect Tom Brady and not be predictable, Sony Michel is going to be on the field. So the upside is there. He has turned into a tremendous value. Before I was taking him in the 4th, it wasn't necessarily a value. It was just me drafting him for the upside. But now he's a tremendous value.
I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but real question, Tags. Would it surprise you at all if Sony Michel was a first-round pick this time next year?
Would it surprise me if a first-round pick?
Yeah, this time next year.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I could see second-round pick. I don't know if he. Well, yes, I do think he could be a first-round pick. I say that because of his talent, but the reason that I'll say he won't be is because Tom Brady is going to retire after this year, and people are going to be concerned about the offense, the state of it, and wondering if they don't think it'll produce enough fantasy points for him to be taken in the first round. But I think people are going to see the talent this year, and you'll be seeing him drafted in the second round next year.
What are the Patriots going to do?
I don't know.
They're not going to start Danny Etling, man.
It's I don't know what they're going to do, man. It's Etling or Brian Hoyer, and they're not going to do that. So I don't know, man. With the 2 first-round picks they had this year, I thought they would have selected someone, maybe like Mason Rudolph there. I don't know, but they apparently felt like it wasn't the class for them.
Maybe old Bill's going to just play quarterback himself.
Bill's going to retire with Tom.
You think so? I don't know.
No, he's
Tom's
not.
Probably just going to play another 5 years. I'm sure Tom Brady would have said, "Hey, man, I'm probably going to retire. Just draft a quarterback," and they didn't.
I know. I don't know the whole situation. There's obviously some rumors out there about what happened with Jimmy Garoppolo and that, but I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. That's the thing, is like Brady is going to leave them high and dry when he retires. Like, granted, he's given you so much for the franchise. You can't be mad at Tom Brady. There was someone that wrote an article saying that Tom Brady owes us 2 more years. He doesn't owe you anything. Like, are we serious?
Yeah, and he took pay cuts the whole time, too.
Tom Brady owes the Patriot fans nothing. He owes the Patriots nothing. Like, seriously, Tom Brady has given that franchise their name. Like, he is the Patriots.
I bet Brett Favre would still come back. You know he wants to come back. He's just waiting.
Oh, my God. Oh, he would. 100%.
He'd have to play in jeans, though. That's the only rule that he would have. All right, man. 6th round here. And there's a few players that I really like. Obviously, Marshawn Lynch is my favorite value of anyone in any round. I'm getting all the Marshawn Lynch. Nobody could change my mind on this one. Like, you can change my mind still on several players. I've had my mind changed talking to a lot of the experts that have come on the show, but Marshawn Lynch, I'm not changing my mind here. The guy he's spectacular. He's being drafted as the RB28.
I actually have Lynch on my list as well, so I have come around on this one after watching Marshawn Lynch in the preseason. He looks like he's running like he's 28 again. He looked so good. He was in better shape. Like, honest to God, I didn't see him move as good as he did in the preseason, the first week of the preseason. Like, I better than he looked all last year to me. And I know that some people down the stretch.
And last year he was good.
Yeah, down the stretch he got better and better. I think it's because he got more in shape as the year went on. But my concern with Lynch is obviously always just the DGAF factor, where it wouldn't shock me if the Raiders started out, let's say they start out like 2-5 or something like that, and Lynch just says, I'm out. Like, that wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah. And he hasn't exactly been the most durable running back either.
Correct. But my biggest value in this round is Chris Hogan. Like, Chris Hogan going in this range is such a steal. I actually have moved him up where I would consider him in the 5th round. I think you're drafting him at wide receiver 3 cost, but he's got wide receiver 1 upside written all over him. People forgot, before he got hurt last year, he was outproducing Brandon Cooks. He was getting targeted more than Brandon Cooks. He actually finished the season with more red zone targets than Brandon Cooks, even though he missed that time with injury. Knowing that Julian Edelman is out for 4 weeks, knowing that they cut Jordan Matthews, knowing that Eric Decker is struggling picking up the offense, knowing they cut Malcolm Mitchell, looking at everything around you, it's like, who the hell is he going to throw to? I mean, Gronk's there, but Chris Hogan is now year 3 in the offense. He's going to be a free agent after this year. There's so many things to like with Chris Hogan. And even if you think that Edelman's going to come back and he's going to steal all that, draft Hogan, use him for the first 4 weeks and trade him, because his value is going to be sky high. I'm on board with Chris Hogan as a high-end wide receiver 3. And honestly, if you go RB heavy and you want Hogan as your low-end wide receiver 2, I'm okay with that as well.
Interesting, man. I haven't heard anyone really be super excited about Chris Hogan. I mean, the argument makes sense. It's just, I don't have any shares because I'm drafting all the Marshawn Lynch. By the way, I want to go back to this final 8 weeks of the season. So second half of the season, Marshawn Lynch was an RB1. He was better than Leonard Fournette, Jordan Howard, Carlos Hyde, who was also an RB1 over the whole season, Christian McCaffrey. Marshawn Lynch turned it on, and he was great.
He absolutely was. And that's why I said down the stretch he was good. I just didn't understand why they'd bring in Doug Martin. Like, why bring in Doug Martin if you have that running back on the roster already? Like, that's my concern. Like, I don't get it.
It's the same running back. If Marshawn Lynch gets hurt, you just fill him right in.
Yeah, Lynch is a better version, like, too. And that's the thing. You already had him on the roster. And that's why I was talking about Doug Martin, and that's why people thought I was crazy. It's because, like, John Gruden has, like, this thing for Doug Martin. He's an old Tampa Bay running back, and, like, he's always wanted to work with him, and I don't know. It's really weird. Like, Gruden is, like, a weird dude, but that's my only concern. But by the way, Chris Hogan, I just pulled it up so I can share it with you guys. He was the number 7 fantasy wide receiver over the first 8 weeks before he got hurt.
Good stat, man.
And that was with Brandon Cooks in the roster.
Hey, do you want to be the guy that hypes up Sammy Watkins here so I don't just seem like the Sammy Watkins guy? Because I know we both want to.
I have Sammy down on my list as well. He was my last player on the list that I had to talk about today. And the reason is because, like, people want to hate Sammy Watkins after what he did last year, and people want to talk about, like, how he's not a great receiver, and that, you know, if you look at how the Rams used him, they used him as a decoy, guys. Like, Sammy Watkins was a decoy all year because he never had a chance to learn the playbook. So when you wonder why he's running a go route and they didn't target him, it's because he opened everything up underneath for guys like Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Todd Gurley. Sammy Watkins, he saw 7 or more targets 4 times last year. He saw 9 or more once. You cannot produce with that type of targets. He saw 4.7 targets per game.
He was one of the most efficient wide receivers in football, again, like always.
The fact that he finished as a top 36 wide receiver despite seeing 4.7 targets per game should tell you a lot. He was really efficient in the red zone, obviously, and we know that the Chiefs don't use Tyreek Hill in the red zone because he got 4 red zone targets all of last year. So maybe Sammy Watkins becomes the go-to guy along with Travis Kelce in the red zone for them. Again, there's more pass attempts. They paid him a whole lot of money to come in. They didn't pay him money to come in and be a decoy. They didn't do that. He's been with the team the entire offseason. I feel like Sammy Watkins could be like the 1B to Tyreek Hill 1A, or, you know, vice versa. Like, both of them are going to be competing for similar targets.
This round, you know how I mentioned that that round 3 had some horrible values? Round 6, people are taking Evan Ingram in the beginning of round 6. They're taking Will Fuller at the end of round 6, Tevin Coleman. Oh, man, this is ugly.
Yeah, for
This is
sure.
really ugly.
It's not great.
All right, man. So I did say rounds 3 through 7, and I think you prepared rounds 3 through 6, but you can talk about anything. So we're just going to go to the 7th round. So let's look at it. Obviously, Rex Burkhead, this isn't going to last. He's not going to keep going in the 7th round with the Sony Michel news. And frankly, if we hear good news about Sony Michel, still take Rex Burkhead, right, Tags?
Yep, I've been on board. Even when Sony Michel was healthy, I said that Rex Burkhead is a flex option. And when I started going through the boom bust and everything in between series, this is hilarious. Christian McCaffrey finished as an RB2 or better 56% of the time. Rex Burkhead last year, 60%. Rex Burkhead also had the same amount of games with 25 or more PPR points. So it's just like Christian McCaffrey, I said he's safe, and I still say that. I still say he's a fine pick at that 2-3 turn. I think he's fine in PPR leagues. I don't think he presents top 5 upside. Rex Burkhead doesn't either. I'm not saying he's going to finish top 5, but he gives you an awesome floor in the Patriots offense. That's such high scoring offense. Rex Burkhead only had 9.4 touches per game last year, so the best part is you don't even have to project a massive increase in touches. Deion Lewis is gone. James White is what he is. Sony Michel is there, but Rex Burkhead, they obviously re-signed him for a reason. They like what he did, even though he fumbled, and I think it was week 13 or 14 last year against the Raiders. Bill Belichick kept going with him. It wasn't like a Mike Gillislee situation where he just wanted to bench him. So, yeah, Rex Burkhead, by taking him later, you're getting Christian McCaffrey light, but 4 or 5 rounds later.
You're right. That's actually the only value I have in this round. If I don't get Rex Burkhead, I'm reaching for a tight end. I'm either getting Delaney Walker, Kyle Rudolph, or Trey Burton. If you don't have a tight end by the end of round 8, you're just in big trouble. So, I guess you can believe in David Njoku. I still don't, even though he had 2 touchdowns in the preseason game. It is tight end or bust in round 8 for me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is round 8 is where I'm usually getting my tight end as well. It's like Jordan Reed or Trey Burton in that area. But if you want to take Delaney Walker or Kyle Rudolph in the 7th, I'm okay with that. But my favorite value in the 7th round would be Kerryon Johnson. He's another one that I got in best ball leagues. I laughed because LeGarrette Blount was being drafted as the RB30 and Kerryon was the RB42. And I was like, these should absolutely be flip-flopped. And I wouldn't even take Blount at 42. Kerryon Johnson, they drafted him in the 2nd round for a reason. He looked every bit the running back. He looked better than I thought he would, actually. Kerryon's a good 3-down back. I don't think he's elite, but he looked better than I thought on his college tape at Auburn. So Kerryon, the Lions beat writers have said this is going to be somewhat of a timeshare, but make no mistake about it, Kerryon Johnson is going to lead this team in touches.
If I've already got a tight end heading into this round, I don't mind reaching for somebody like Jamison Crowder, Randall Cobb, even going all the way down to, I wouldn't reach for Andrew Luck. Maybe I would take my first quarterback here if Drew Brees is still on the board. There's a lot of things you could do in round 7. There's another player that I've been finding myself getting a ton in round 7. That's actually who the stat of the day is about. But first, Tags, I want to head on over to the listener mailbag, unless there were other players you want to talk about.
No, man, good.
All right. And if you want to send in questions for the listener mailbag, you can email us, mailbag@fantasypros.com, or you can tweet us at Mike Taglier NFL or at Bobby Fantasy Pro. And Tex, we've got a voicemail line, which is actually where we're taking the calls from. Can you tell our listeners how to call in?
Absolutely. We've gotten more and more actually over the last few weeks. So we narrowed down to a couple this episode because we can only fit in a few here and there. But thank you guys for calling in. Again, leave your name, where you're from, and then a question. Do not do a keeper question because we're not going to address it. We can't do those guys because they don't apply to everybody's league. But the number to call is 209-881 PROS, pros.
All right, and the first question, this is a really good example of how to do it. He says his name, where he's from. He's super well-spoken, clear questions. This is Jack from Minnesota.
Hey, fellas, this is Jack from Minnesota. A couple quick questions for you about some potential sleeper wideouts. Geronimo Allison in Green Bay, why isn't this guy getting any more love than he currently is? Because if the season were to start today, you'd have to imagine he'd be lining up across from Devontae Adams, and if Adams does get that extra attention from top cornerbacks, that should leave the 6'3 Geronimo Allison to be a sleeper stud, especially if Rodgers is healthy all year. That's pretty much a lock for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. And then down south with Michael Gallup, you guys have brought him up a couple times this offseason, and another guy that I don't know if the fantasy community is just not noticing or doesn't know his name, but I want to hear your opinions on both those guys and whether or not you think they could have potential for some stud years, just because according to the awesome draft wizard, they're going undrafted in most leagues. So appreciate your guys' help. Skol Vikes.
So what do you think, Tags? We've been talking about Geronimo Allison for a while now. Now, we haven't been, tooting the horn quite as hard lately because we weren't sure, but now they've said he's the wide receiver 3. So what do you think?
It's funny that I was happy that this question came in because I don't think we've talked about Geronimo Allison in quite some time, because he was someone, if you guys were listening to the offseason podcast, you already know the name. He was someone that as the season ended, I said, go get Geronimo Allison off your dynasty waiver wire because he's sitting there. And I felt like he was one of the best sleepers in fantasy football heading into 2018. Now, the hype died down when they drafted a couple wide receivers in this year's draft, but they were on day 3, so they weren't like high round picks. I still felt like Allison was going to win, but again, there's always that level of uncertainty. He caught a touchdown yesterday, and they said it was like a highlight reel grab in the back of the end zone from Rodgers, and he went down. Trainers got around him, and it turned out he just knocked the wind out of himself. But Aaron Rodgers said it's great to know that he's healthy because he's turned into one of like his go-to guys. And that's really good to hear, because Aaron Rodgers is a guy we've talked about on the show that relies so much on the chemistry that he has. And to know that Allison has played, I think it's 15 games with Aaron Rodgers to this point in his career over the 2 seasons, and seen targets in those games, I should say. And to know that this is his 3rd year in the offense, there's just a whole lot to like here. A lot of the other guys are new faces around him. Aaron Rodgers just wants some consistency. And that's why, yesterday's show, I think it was Matt talking about the fact that Rodgers he's upset that there's just a bunch of, unexperienced guys around him. So to know that Geronimo Allison has been there, to know that they're saying his hands have been sure things in training camp, to know that he knows where he's at in the field, I like him. And knowing that Randall Cobb is dealing with his foot issue that he had surgery on this offseason, Geronimo Allison is the best part is you don't have
got a lot of upside, man. Lots of it.
You could draft him. His ADP right now is 180. I mean, so he's essentially going in the last round, if anything. So you could grab him in like the 13th or 14th round and have a guy that you're going to learn exactly what he is in week 1. And I feel like you're going to be extremely happy with it.
I think you'll probably be able to use him most weeks. I think he's safe. I think he has huge upside too. Now, I'd rather have Ryan Grant because Ryan Grant is the number 2 in Andrew Luck's offense, and Andrew Luck, I think he's going to be just fine based on what we're hearing right now. But I want both these guys. Like, I'm cool if my number 5 and number 6 wide receivers are Geronimo Allison and Ryan Grant. Now, I'd also like to get John Ross in there. There's so many late round values. Michael Gallup's one of them, but there's just other guys that I like more. I don't really think he has a huge ceiling as a rookie. Do you agree, Tags?
I think Gallup would if he got into the starting lineup, but the fact that the Cowboys aren't moving him into that, it concerns me because he has to essentially pass Terrence Williams, who's been a darling, because he can run block as a wide receiver. That's what we need.
Just put him on the offensive line, man, if that's what you're looking for. Come on.
And then they brought in Alan Hearns to obviously be the go-to guy in the offense, which is a question in itself. And then obviously Cole Beasley is going to start in the slot. So he doesn't have a place in the team right now, as in the starting lineup, I should say, not in the team. But I think eventually he gets there. But if he's not a starter by week 3 of the preseason, it's not going to happen. Okay, so at that point, it's tough to draft him. And the reason I say that is because if you have him on your bench waiting for him to get into the starting lineup, which I do believe he will at some point, you're holding a roster spot in the most important weeks of fantasy football on the waiver wire. I've said this over and over. Weeks 1 and 2, we learn what the actual depth charts is. Coach speak doesn't matter anymore. ADP doesn't matter anymore. We know who's getting the targets. We know who's getting the snaps. Those are the players we target, and that's why they're such important weeks. So to hold a roster spot for someone like Gallup, who, if he's not a starter at the start of the season, you better have deep benches. I like Gallup as a player. I think he should be a starter, but unfortunately the Cowboys don't.
I'll tell you what I think is going to happen with Gallup, Jack. I don't think he's going to start. I think he's going to be cut in week 2, week 3 on most fantasy teams. We'll be able to scoop him up later, right before he becomes the starter. He's eventually going to be the best receiver on Dallas at some point this year, but if you draft him, you're probably going to cut him, so I would just wait. All right, next question. This one's from Chris in North Carolina.
Hey, guys. Love the show. My name is Chris. I'm from North Carolina. In a 12-man half PPR league, finally, this is like the 5th year, we're deciding to get rid of the kicker. And we want to know what's the best format. Some people want to go add another flex. I personally would rather add another receiver. Want to get you guys info on what's the best lineup way to go with a 12-man league. Thank you.
All right, Tags, I've got lots of opinions on this, and I think we have similar opinions here, so why don't you just go first, and then I'll piggyback on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been a big proponent, even before kickers were, like the thing to get rid of in fantasy leagues, that just adding more flex spots, because it adds a wider talent gap between you and the rest of the league. The more knowledgeable you are, the deeper you want rosters to be. So add another flex spot, somebody that you could put in wide receiver, running back, or tight end. You could add a super flex if you want to. I know people that have been playing fantasy for a long time, it's kind of like getting a new cell phone, right? Like when you get a new cell phone, you hate it because I just want things to go back to the way my old phone was. But once you learn the features of the new phone, it's like, how did I ever live without this, right? So that's kind of how I view, changing your league settings. Nobody is ever willing to do it, but once they do it, they're like, okay, this isn't that bad.
Exactly.
So
unless it's IDP, then no. Then they're like, why did we do this?
For sure.
Here's what I think, okay? If your league is open to finally getting rid of kickers, maybe they will be open to changing things up quite a bit, right? So tell them to listen to this. I think most experts in the industry agree with us that Superflex is the way to go. Why is quarterback not more important? It's the single most important position of any position across all sports, and yet we're only drafting 12 of these guys? We need to draft 2 of them, 3 of them per team. Let 2 of them start. So add the super flex, see if they're willing to do that, and add a second flex as well. You start 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a quarterback, a super flex, and then 2 flex guys.
Yeah, my keeper league this year, we're actually losing. We're getting rid, like my home keeper league. We've always started 3 receivers and 2 flex. We're actually getting rid of the defense. We've gotten rid of kickers already, but the defense we're getting rid of this year and adding another flex. So we have 3 wide receivers and 3 flex spots, 2 running backs. It's awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, I don't think I said tight end, but yeah, you need a tight end.
Yeah,
too.
that too.
Okay, here's the stat of the day, Tags, and I absolutely love this one. I found it during the show. And I was like, oh man, I have to tell everybody this. I immediately changed my rankings because I had no idea that Jamal Williams was a top 10 running back over the final 8 weeks of the season. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
He was better than Kareem Hunt, Jordan Howard, Leonard Fournette. Jamal Williams was the 9th running back. He was right up there with Melvin Gordon and LeSean McCoy.
He had some big workloads, and I remember using him a couple weeks in DFS last year. So I do know that. Now, he was somewhat boring in terms of, he was just getting it done with a lot of volume. And will the volume be there again? Because Aaron Jones was hurt for part of that. Ty Montgomery was hurt for part of that. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers wasn't behind center, so they were running the ball more often. They were throwing because Brent Hundley was just not very good. So things change, obviously, but Jamal Williams, he wasn't bad. And that's the reason I defended Jamal Williams this offseason is because obviously they believe he can pass block, in quotes again, as a running back, which shouldn't really matter that much. They're out catching passes more often than not. But the reason I stood up for him is that he showed the ability to stand up to a full workload. Aaron Jones broke down. Ty Montgomery broke down. So, I mean, if Jamal Williams is the one who could withstand 15 to 20 carries a game, he's the one who's going to get him.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm excited about this. I'm totally cool with getting Mark Ingram, getting Marshawn Lynch, Jamal Williams as my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th running back, just letting everybody else go crazy. I'm filling my team with quality wide receivers. I like that.
And then get Jordan Wilkins later or something like that. You can do that too with Mark Ingram.
Yeah, get Jordan Wilkins later.
Might work out.
Yeah, maybe Samaje Perine.
Yeah, no.
I feel dirty for saying that, but I don't mind having Samaje Perine.
By the way, Bobby, before we get out of here, I actually wanted to bring up something that you haven't even heard yet. It came into our mailbag, and Mark, I just want to say...
Oh, boy. Mailbag things make me a little bit nervous sometimes.
No, kudos to Mark from Texas. He said he wants to make this a weekly thing, so we'll see what happens. But this is a poem that he wrote. Welcome to the preseason edition of Fantasy Pros. If you read it on the podcast, you'll smell like a rose. My goal is turning into a weekly edition. It's not just a hope. It's my sincere, heartfelt mission. NFL preseason games are hard to watch, but not as bad as baseball, and it's grabbing of crotch. So Darius Geis and his knee have been hurt. Early drafters are losing their shirts. Antonio Brown's injury was more fake news. His tweets were rough as his anger brewed. So if you don't draft him, at least 5th in the draft, all other owners will be sure to laugh. Lastly, the Bears have signed their number 1 pick. As you see, maybe the owner will stop thinking he's a Rick with a P.
That's pretty good, man.
Mark, it made me laugh, dude. So, I mean, if you make me laugh in the mailbag, I'm probably going to read it just because it brightens up everybody's day. If you didn't laugh to that, I mean, come on.
When you said poem, I thought it was going to be a love note.
It was not a love note, unfortunately.
I thought somebody saw me breaking a world record and they're like, I got to send a love note in.
No,
Just kidding.
No, we don't need no more
I
stalkers.
hope you guys know I'm not actually arrogant. Like, I pretend to be because I think it's funny to kind of make fun of those people, but that's not me, guys.
Oh, it's Bobby. Like, seriously, he DM'd me as soon as he recorded that video, and he's like, Mike, I set a world record. Suck it.
No, I did not, you big turd. Oh, that's a good way to end the show. That's all we have for the show, man. It was a fun one.
It was fun, man.
And next show, I am definitely getting you on Does Tags Know Everything for ending the show that way.
Oh, man, the pop culture stuff is killing me. It's making me smarter, though, so let's do it.
It's not making you smarter. It's making us all stupider, but it's really funny to laugh at. Okay, guys, remember that we've got the offer going on where you can get a 6-month premium upgrade to our highest tier for just $10. Go to fantasypros.com/offer, or if you're already a premium member, go to fantasypros.com/extend to extend it for 6 more months. We're also giving away a signed David Johnson jersey to one listener. Go to fantasypros.com/contest. It takes about 30 seconds to enter. Also, thanks to the sponsors of today's show, teamstake.com. If you're tired of hassling friends and family for fantasy league entry fees, try Teamstake. Fully customizable payout collection and payout distribution system at no charge. And thanks also to Sleeper. If you go to Sleeper app, just take 5 seconds to look at their site, and you will be begging your league, just like me, to change your league over to Sleeper. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.